pound cake. Southern pound cake is a tradition in this area. I'm going to share with you the best recipe that I've found for a perfectly dense pound cake infused with sweet vanilla scent and a rich buttery taste. Now, this recipe came from Lucy Buffett. She's a fabulous Southern businesswoman and author known for her Gulf Shores restaurant, Lulu's. She's also the little sister of the singer-songwriter Jimmy Buffett. Now, the name pound cake comes from the original recipe. It actually called for a pound of butter, sugar, eggs, and flour. It's an early 1700s British recipe, so we've changed the measurements for the ingredients in modern day time. We've kept the same ratio though. So to make this cake, we're going to need some powdered sugar, 3 cups of regular sugar, 5 large eggs at room temperature, 3 sticks of unsalted butter, along with a little bit more, room temperature, 3 cups of all-purpose flour, a cup of whole milk, some fruit or berries of your choice, and then we're going to need 2½ teaspoons of vanilla, ½ teaspoon of baking powder, and a ½ teaspoon of sea salt. So now that we know our ingredients, we got to first preheat the oven. We're going to preheat the oven for 325 and let that get started. Now, second step, we need to butter this and also put some flour in it. So we're going to take that little piece of butter that I told you to leave out, and we're going to sit over the sink and we're going to rub butter all on the inside of it. Butter is a better ingredient to use as opposed to non-stick cooking spray. Tastes better too. So we're going to rub this completely around, make sure it's completely covered. We don't want the cake getting stuck to the top or the sides of the pan. So now that we've done this, we're actually going to add, I pulled out a little bit more flour because we need to cover this. So the trick is to just pour a little bit in, and then you're just going to kind of shake across to get it covered. You may need to pat it at times. It's a messy job. You're going to get your hands dirty. And so for the majority of the pan, it's now covered. So we're going to set this aside and come back to this later. Now in the mixer, we're going to start our butter, okay? For any recipes that involve creaming butter at the beginning of the recipe, you're going to need this room temp like I already mentioned. By using room temp, it actually helps it spread more and it becomes a more creamy texture when you're done. So we're going to take our 3 sticks of butter, and we're going to start mixing on medium. All right, so now I want you to see the texture of this butter, okay? So now that we've got it at the right consistency, it's creamy, we're gonna start adding in the sugar. We need to use the ½ cup measurement, and we're gonna start adding in that sugar a little bit at a time, okay? So we're gonna scoop in ½ a cup, we're gonna add it in, and then we're gonna mix. And this process will take a little while, but that's what makes the cake so great. So see, you maybe beat it for like 20 seconds, and then once you stop, you're gonna add in that other ½ cup. And so you can see where this kind of is a long process again, but it'll make it certainly worth it. So now that we're done mixing our sugar in here, you can kind of see the texture is very fluffy. That's exactly what we want. So now that we're done with this, we're gonna move on to adding in the eggs. Remember I told you the eggs needed to be room temp. By getting these at room temp, it actually allows the yolk to break apart easier so that it can mix completely with all the ingredients. So we're gonna dump these in. And then we're gonna start our mixer back up. we've got this wonderful consistency going on here, and we're gonna work on our flour. For our flour, remember we need a half teaspoon of sea salt, and then we also need a half teaspoon of baking powder. We need to whisk that all together, like so. And then now the next part, we're going to actually alternate between adding flour and adding milk into the mixer as we go. So we're gonna put our mixer on low, and then we're gonna start alternating. You wanna always begin with the flour and end with the flour. So we're gonna do our half cup and make a mess and let that mix for a second. Now, remember we're gonna alternate. So we're gonna start pouring in just a little bit of milk. And this is how we get that density for our shortcake. This is what builds it and makes it much stronger and more dense. So then we're gonna, like I said, alternate again. So you're gonna do this for a couple times. And I'll meet you back when I'm done. So now that everything's mixed in, you can see the consistency is very smooth. We have one final step. We need to add in the vanilla. So we're gonna add in 2.5 teaspoons of vanilla. 1, 2.5. Now, I always prefer pure vanilla as opposed to anything else that can be sold in the grocery stores. I prefer the pure vanilla blend. All right, so we need to mix that in one good time. Make sure it's incorporated. And we're finished. Next step, we need to take our already prepared pan that we buttered and floured, and we're going to start adding in our mixture. I'll say that. Now, you may have more than you actually need for this pan, and that's okay. Sometimes I like to use the extra and make a little mini cake. You want to have about 1 inch out away from the pan, so you don't want it to fill up completely. It's going to rise and it's going to be kind of alarming when you watch it in the oven if you don't do that. So let's just see. Okay, so now you can kind of see what I was talking about. We need that 1 inch away from the top because it is going to rise. So we want to make sure this is all smooth in here. And then another trick to make sure there aren't any air bubbles before we bake it, we're going to take a kitchen towel and we're just going to press to make sure all that air is out. All right, and it goes in the oven for 1 hour and 10 minutes. Looks like it's done. Okay, so you're going to see a nice golden brown crust. Shut this oven door. And you're going to want to let it sit on this wire rack for about 15 minutes to cool off inside the pan. Then after those 15 minutes, I'll get back with you. Okay, so now that we waited our 15 minutes, we're going to flip the cake. We'll see how it goes. Drum roll. Ta-da! So now we're gonna let it cool, and then we're going to add our powdered sugar and our assortment of berries. Alright, so instead of just picking up this powdered sugar and just sprinkling it across, I like to use a sifter. It's a little bit, gives it a little bit more extra pizzazz. So I'm just gonna take some of this powdered sugar, put it in the sifter, and then you're just gonna lightly tap. We don't want a lot because it's gonna be a sweet cake already, but we do want a pretty little snow covering on top. So after much waiting, it's now time to eat. Hope you enjoy the recipe, and thanks for watching.